let us discuss about the next topic, that is populations. These populations, these are group of individuals belonging to a single species. So species are interbreeding group of individuals. Interbreeding group of individuals is called generally a species. Populations means a group of individuals belonging to single species living at a specific area in a specific period. That is called generally a population. When we say interbreeding group, that doesn't mean that they are only sexually reproducing individuals we consider as population, but even asexually reproducing organisms also. Asexually reproducing group also considered as population. These populations, when we are discussing, we generally find some features of populations, characters of population. They are called population attributes. Population attributes. These populations attributes means the features are there. They are mainly natality and mortality. Natality and mortality. Natality is birth rate, mortality is death rate. Here we are talking about the entire group living at that particular place. So we talk about the birth rate of the population in a period, in a unit time. So if you take an example, suppose in a pond there are 20 lotus plants are there. In 1 year they increase it to, in 1 year they increase it to 28. So the increase in the number, that is birth rate, is 8. So increase in the number is 8. So this 8 by 20, that is 0.4, is considered the natality, birth rate. Same way, mortality. Suppose out of 20 organisms, 4 died. So remaining are 16 only. In 1 year we reduce it to 16. 4 died. So 4 by 20, that is 0.2. 0.2 is the mortality of this population. These are the ways generally they calculate about the natality and mortality of a population. Sex ratio of individuals, of a population. So the ratio between males and females, this is also important. When you are talking about the characters of a population, the ratio is also important. For example, humans, in the recent census they said for 1,000 males there are around 940 females. Just an example, if you take, this is the sex ratio of the population. Then another important thing is population. In a population we find age distribution is also important. age distribution is also important. In every population, there are 3 age groups. 3 age groups. We divide into 3 age groups. Pre-reproductive age group, that is young individuals. Pre-reproductive age group. Reproductive age group, mature individuals. And post-reproductive age group, that is older individuals. These 3 age groups generally we find in a population. Now, when we are describing a population, we describe if the population is increasing, it is called growing population or increasing population, or stable population if there is no marked increase, or declining population. If the older individuals are more, then birth rate might be less, then we call it as declining or decreasing population. So this description of a population, they explain in the form of, they represent in the form of age pyramids. Age pyramids. For an increasing population, the shape of the pyramid is upright triangle. At the base, generally we take pre-reproductive age group. Pre-reproductive age group we take at the base. Then at the apex we take older individuals or post-reproductive age group, and mature individuals, reproductive age group. So, because in the increasing population, definitely natality will be more. So, pre-reproductive age group, that is young individuals, are more. So, you will find an upright triangle. Shape of pyramid you will get for increasing population. If you take a stable population, the natality and mortality might be almost same. So, you will find almost all age groups will be approximately equal. So, you will find a bell-shaped pyramid. A bell-shaped pyramid, almost pre-reproductive age group, reproductive age group, and post-reproductive age groups. All of them are almost equal. We can say natality is equal to mortality. In growing population, natality is greater than mortality in increasing population. So, stable population you will find a bell-shaped pyramid. Then, if you take a declining population, birth rate is less than death rate. So, you will get an urn-shaped pyramid. Pre-reproductive age group is less. Post-reproductive and reproductive are almost similar. But pre-reproductive natality is less than mortality. So, you will find an urn-shaped pyramid. So these are representing the type of nature of population in a particular society, in a particular time, whether it is upright triangle or bell-shaped or urn-shaped. Easily you can identify whether population is increasing, stable or decreasing. This is about age distribution in a population. Population density. Density is number of individuals in a unit area in unit time. This is called population density. So generally population density we represent as numbers. Suppose you take a particular 100 square meters area. There are 100 rabbits in 1 year time. Like that we calculate the density. So D is equal to, or if you take population density as capital N, then it is number of individuals in a particular, at a specific area. N is equal to N by A. N is density, N is number of individuals, and A is area. This is general calculation of population density, taking numbers into consideration. But always you cannot express density in terms of numbers. Sometimes you will find a large tree, a banyan tree is there. Number is only 1, and there are many plants in that area, Parthenium plants. These are shrubs. If you consider this, banyan tree is a vast, it has occupied large area. You cannot take numbers into consideration. Then in this example, we consider biomass. To express the density, we take biomass. Biomass of banyan tree is definitely more when compared to all these Parthenium plants. So in such cases, to express density, we take biomass into consideration. Same way, sometimes you have to take relative density into consideration. For example, when we are talking about the density of fish in a particular season, at a particular place, then we take the number of fish captured per trap, that we take into consideration. So relatively, in a particular season, so many number of catfish were captured. The next season, the density of catfish they compare. So like that, relatively they'll find, and they do this survey and all, which seasons this fish density is more or less, they come into a conclusion. Like that, relative densities also they will take into consideration. Or if you take some microorganisms like Chlamydomonas or some bacteria, then we take volume. In a petri dish, we can find how many Chlamydomonas organisms are there. Some 1,000 Chlamydomonas in a specific volume they mention. That way also they express the population density. Sometimes indirect count will be there. Generally, this they will do to find out the density of wild animals like elephants, tigers and all, they see the pug marks. They see the footprints. Pug marks means these footprints. Generally near the water sources and all, they count these pug marks. Depending on the pug marks, they can estimate the density of the individuals. Or sometimes they take fecal pellets. So in that area, by seeing this, by observing the fecal pellets also, they estimate the density of population. These are some of the characters. And now another important character of a population, attribute population, is population growth. Next important character is population growth. The population growth is possible because of natality, as we have discussed already. When natality is more, population would be growing. When mortality is more, population would be decreasing. So natality and mortality, they influence the population growth. In addition to this, sometimes immigration and emigration. If new individuals joined this population, it is called immigration. If the individuals are leaving the population due to drought conditions or due to scarcity of food, sometimes they go to other places, then also the populations will decrease. So leaving that particular place and going permanently to another place is called emigration. If new individuals are entering into this place, into this population, it is called immigration. So we can easily say natality and immigration increase the population, mortality and emigration decrease the population. Particularly in a newly colonized population, newly colonized, that means developing population, this immigration and emigration are important. Immigration and emigration, they influence the population growth in a newly colonized population. Whether new individuals, if that place is conducive, all favorable conditions are there, population will increase. So we can represent this in the form of a equation. Population by natality, it will increase. By mortality, the population will decrease. Same way, by immigration, population will increase and decreases by emigration. So this is one simple thing to understand this population growth. And mathematically, they calculate the population growth by this formula: Nt plus 1 is equal to, that N is size of the population, Nt plus B plus I minus D plus E. In this formula, N is equal to population size or density, T is equal to time, B is birth rate, D is death rate, I is immigration, immigrants. E is emigration. So earlier year they take, and then number of births, number of immigrants, and from this we have to subtract the number of deaths and emigrants. Then we will get the size of the population in last year. Then growth models. Growth models. There are two growth models. First one is exponential growth model. Exponential growth or geometric growth. In this growth model, this type of growth, there would be unlimited resources. Unlimited environmental resources are there. When everything is abundant, there is no scarcity of space, water, food, anything, then under unlimited environmental resources, the population will grow in steep manner like this. So you will find a J-shaped growth curve. J-shaped growth curve. This is called exponential growth curve. Resources are unlimited. So this they can calculate by delta n by delta t is equal to, let me repeat this. This under unlimited environmental resources, we find the growth curve. The population is increasing. There is a steep increase in the population. So we represent this in the form of an equation. Delta n by delta t is equal to b minus d into n. N is again population size, t is equal to time, b is birth rate, d is death rate. B minus d is equal to r. B minus d is equal to r. So we can write this equation as delta n by delta t is equal to r n. In this, n is population size. Once again I'll write n is population size, t is equal to time, r is b minus d, that is birth rate minus death rate. This is called intrinsic rate of increase. Intrinsic rate of increase in the population. So in a population, this is the increase, intrinsic rate of increase. So that is how they calculate this intrinsic rate of increase in a population. If you take intrinsic rate of increase of human population, this R value is 0.0205. And if you take a floor beetles, you will find more increase, 0.12. A Norwegian rat, it is 0.012. Like that they calculate the values of R, that is increase in the population. And in all this, even Darwin mentioned this exponential growth in the theory of natural selection. Under unlimited environmental resources, any population will increase enormously a steep increase in the population you will find. Even in the slowest breeder, like elephants also, under unlimited conditions, it would grow very fast. The growth rate would be enormous, and by this time the entire earth would have been filled by only elephants. So this is not a realistic growth curve, we should say. But it is applicable for some organisms like insects. Suddenly you will find growth of a particular type of insects in one season. Like houseflies, you will find in one particular season, rainy season and all. After that, their populations will decrease. So in some lower organisms, this growth rate is applicable. This growth model is applicable. Logistic means, all of you know that infrastructure. So this is depending on the environmental resources, this growth curve. Here I should tell you about carrying capacity of a particular place. Carrying capacity means maximum number of individuals. Maximum number of individuals which can live or sustained in a particular habitat, which can live in a particular place, in a given area. So maximum number of individuals that can be sustained in a particular habitat, which can live sustained, or simply we can say which can live in a particular habitat. This is called carrying capacity of that particular area. So the population growth depends on the carrying capacity of that particular area. So in this logistic growth curve, we find different stages in the population. In population growth, we find different stages. Suppose you take an example, in a newly colonized, in a newly developing population, initially the growth would be slow, because the individuals which are starting that population, or which have entered into that new area, they take some time to get acclimatized, to get adjusted to the surroundings, and that takes some time. So initially growth rate would be less. After that, the growth rate would be fast. So the initial stage is called lag phase. Lag phase. Slow growth rate will be there. After that, all of them might become mature, they reached the reproductive age, and they got adjusted to the new environment. So that leads to the faster growth of organisms, that is called logistic growth or log phase, logarithmic phase. Logarithmic phase is there. Now, after reaching the carrying capacity, this is the K, we represent this as K. K means carrying capacity. After reaching the carrying capacity, that is the limit. After that, no more individuals can live comfortably. So the growth rate becomes slow and it reaches to a state of equilibrium. So this slow growth rate phase, this is called negative acceleration phase. It is slowing down the growth. And the final stage where the population is becoming stable, neither increase nor decrease, this is called asymptote phase. they have reached the equilibrium state. So you will find a sigmoid growth curve, S-shaped sigmoid growth curve you will get. So in logistic growth curve, the shape of the curve is S-shaped or sigmoid, and the population size depends on the carrying capacity of that particular habitat. This is also called Pearl-Verhulst growth curve. So, as I have mentioned earlier, this is the more realistic we should think. And for this growth curve, we write the formula as delta n by delta t is equal to R n minus k by k. So R is the intrinsic rate of increase, and capital N is size of the population, k is equal to carrying capacity. K is equal to carrying capacity. That is the equation we write for this logistic growth curve. If you represent both the growth curves, it appears like this. This is the curve A, this is curve B. Curve A is J-shaped. It is exponential growth curve. Curve A represents the exponential growth curve, and curve B represents the logistic growth curve. This is J-shaped and this is S-shaped growth curves. So these are the models of population growth. Every species, depending on the environment where they are living, they face some constraints, some forces operating on the species, on every species. So, depending on the constraints of their environment, they have undergone some changes in their life cycles also. So, every species will not show same type of life history, same type of rate of reproduction and all will not be same for all the species. For example, if you take smaller sized, life cycles for some of them, salmon, bamboo trees and all, they reproduce only once in their lifetime. They reproduce only once. But if you take animals like birds, mammals, they reproduce many times, reproduce or breed many times in their lifetime. Only once in their lifetime. Here they reproduce or breed many times in their lifetime. Then some organisms like oysters, starfish, pelagic fish which are free swimming in surface waters and all, they produce very large number of eggs. Thousands of eggs or very large number of gametes are produced by these organisms because they are living at a particular place where there is chances of fertilization might be less, they might be washed out, or they might be moving to flowing along with the flowing waters, they might be carried to other places. So they produce very large number of gametes. But some of them, like viviparous animals, like mammals, they produce very less number of offspring, because the young ones develop in the protected environment. Mammals are viviparous, so they produce less number of offspring. So all these variations depend on their environment, their habitats, and they developed these life cycles, these variations of life cycles developed in course of evolution. Now coming to this topic, population interactions. So every species or any particular organism, they cannot live totally independently without association with other organisms. They always, in nature we find number of associations. They live together, or sometimes even if they don't live together also, they are dependent on other organisms for various purposes. So these population interactions, if you classify, you will find number of types of associations we find. For example, if you take two species, species A and species B. Now, these two species, in case of association like predation, predators are carnivores. They feed on other organisms like herbivores and all. So in this predation, species A is getting benefited, species B is getting harmed. Then if you take competition, in competition both the species are getting affected. Both the species are getting affected in this competition. Then parasitism. Let us consider species A as a parasite. It is getting benefited, but definitely the other one, host, gets harmed. That is parasitism. And commensalism. In this, the commensal that gets benefited, but the other one is not affected at all, neither benefited nor harmed. So one species is getting benefited, but the other species is unaffected. And another one, amensalism. In amensalism, one is getting harmed, other one is unaffected. For this amensalism, now let me tell you an example. If you take a penicillium, and penicillium, you are growing a fungus which is grown in a petri dish with staphylococcus. Penicillium releases the substance penicillin. That penicillin kills this staphylococcus. So here staphylococcus is getting harmed, but penicillium is unaffected, neither benefited nor harmed. This we can take as an example for amensalism. Then mutualism. Mutualism, both the species get benefited. Mutually beneficial relationship. These are some of the associations we find in nature. In this, the parasitism and predation, both of them are showing similar type of effects, whereas mutualism, both of them getting benefited, competition, both of them getting harmed, affected, if not harmed. These are some of the symbols they use to explain these associations. Now, let us talk about each type of association. First, let us see predation. This predation acts as a passage, a conduit. Conduit means main passage for flow of energy in ecosystem. It is main conduit, acts as the conduit for energy transfer in a population. So, predators, generally we think predator means it is a carnivore, but we can consider even a bird like a sparrow. This also we can consider as a predator because it feeds on seeds. So, it is called a granivore. So, this is also considered as a predator because it is taking the seed, seed contains life. So, that way predation means anything which is feeding on other living organisms, that we consider as a predator. So, predation, sometimes it affects other organisms, but at the same time we are now making use of this predatory associations in control of some pests also. So, predation, predators as biological control. Predators are used for biological control. Example, in Australia, when this prickly pear cactus, this plant weeds, they started spreading all over the greenlands, pastures of Australia, spreading wildly in the grasslands of Australia. So, to control this, they used a cactus eating moth. They left an insect. They brought these insects and they released them. So, this moth is a voracious feeder of these cactus plants. So, cactus plants got the spreading of cactus plants was reduced by using this cactus eating moth. This is one of the examples. Another example you studied in malaria control, 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝗃, that fish, larvicidal fish, that is used in controlling the mosquito populations because it feeds on mosquito larvae and it is grown easily in stagnant waters. So, these are some of the examples. Many predators are used nowadays in agriculture and all to control these pests. And predators or this association predation maintains the populations. They maintain the populations population control is also done, or populations are maintained in the nature. Example, if you take a starfish called 𝗬𝗪, this starfish, it was a predator. It used to feed on intertidal fauna. some mollusks and all, many intertidal fauna is food for this starfish, 𝗨𝗲. Then experimentally, when they removed this starfish, competition increased. Removal of this predator increased the populations of fauna, increased populations of intertidal fauna. When populations increased, it resulted in increased competition. And in some 10 years, they found many of these species became extinct. Many species of this intertidal fauna became extinct. So, as long as the predator was there, as it was feeding on different types of fauna, the competition was maintained and the populations were also maintained. But in the absence of predator, their populations initially increased, but it resulted in interspecific competition. It is competition between different species. So interspecific competition increased and many species became extinct. Interspecific competition also affects the size because they are competing for food, same type of food they take, and they require space. So all this increase the competition, struggle for existence. So that led to the extinction of species. Predators are taken into consideration. These predators sometimes, or mostly these predators are prudent. Prudent means practical, pragmatic. They are prudent in their nature. They don't kill indiscriminately these prey populations. Prey populations are not killed indiscriminately by predators, because if they eat away all these prey populations in one day, next day they will not have food. So they are very practical and they don't eat away entire prey in one day, but whenever it is required, then only they feed on the prey populations. That way we should say predators are very much prudent. Prudent means practical. So prey populations are always maintained because of this nature. Now coming to the prey populations. Prey populations means whatever food organisms are there, those food organisms also, they try to escape from predators. So they develop some adaptations of prey organisms, food organisms. They are prey for predators. They develop some adaptations. That is, in animals mainly you will find, in animals we find camouflage. They develop the coloration in such a way, they get mixed up with surroundings. You will find number of frogs, reptiles and all, they have tree snakes, they are green in color. So they get mixed up with surroundings so that other birds, carnivorous birds and all, they cannot locate this prey. So camouflage, one of the common mechanism animals show to escape from predators. Another thing, sometimes they become distasteful nature. Distasteful to predators. Example, camouflage, you can take examples of frogs, lizards, snakes and all. And distasteful to predators. Example, monarch butterfly. This butterfly, when it is in the developing stage, caterpillars, they feed on a particular plant. These caterpillars feed on a poisonous weed, but it is not harming the caterpillars, but caterpillars, when they metamorphose into butterflies, these butterflies develop a sort of taste and all, which is not taken by, which is not liked by their predators. So that is how these monarch butterflies escape from the predators by developing this distasteful nature.